Haha, there I am. Forgot to add my picture to the live screen or whatever you call it. Hi, guys. What's up? Somebody says fresh out of the shower. Yeah, basically. I don't know what to do with this mop these days. What's up? How are you guys doing? Good morning to you. Happy Sunday. Yeah, Tone Talk had a show today, I think, with the That Pedal Show guys. Dan and Mick, my buddies over there in the UK. Good dudes, both of them. Good dudes. So I was giving them a little leeway. I thought I'd start a few minutes late so they could have their show. It's always tough when you're scheduling with folks in Europe and trying to figure out when to do it and what's the best time. Or, Japan. Or I remember when I was over in Japan, I was doing these and I was like, what time do I do it at? Like, I kind of got to do it in the middle of the night. It was the only time that made sense. I'd have to start at like 1 a.m. or something. I mean, I think that was like 9 a.m. or whatever LA time. 10 a.m., something like that. So it was hard. And I did a couple of them in the middle of the night and then I was just like exhausted. But anyways, okay. So there's so what's going on this week? I don't know. There's somebody out there asking right off the bat about a treble bleed circuit with a Carvin DC 145 single hum guitar. I would look online and find out what the values that Sir uses, because whatever his treble bleed circuit is, it's a cap and resistor, and I'm sure it's pretty easy to find. I can probably Google it in a second, but whatever his values are, it works great. I find if you like treble bleed, if you don't want that darkening as you roll down the volume. I used to use it sometimes just on the neck pickup. On my Black Les Paul Custom, I had a treble bleed only on the neck pickup because I found on the bridge, you could roll down and get a little darker and it was kind of cool. But on the neck pickup, it just get woolly. And so that was how I'd get more like a, not single coil, but you could roll down the neck to 4 on the guitar or something and then hit that. And then you'd have the bridge full. That was actually a cool thing. Like you could, with the 2 volume controls on the guitar, you could have the treble bleed on the neck and hit the neck pickup and get sparkly or clean and stuff like that. And then hit the bridge and be full bore overdrive, like with a single channel amp. Kind of a cool trick to just only put the treble bleed on the neck for to kind of balance out the pickups. But now with Thornbuckers, I find it's pretty balanced anyway. So, and I've just got treble bleed across the board generally on all my guitars. So, like on my signature guitar is a treble bleed 2 humbucker, and I don't find, I like having the treble bleed on my signature guitar for sure. So, I'd say just find the Sir values, and it should be pretty easy to find. What else, folks? All kinds of people here. Surrey, BC, some folks in the UK. Metal Madness says, new haircut? No, just no haircut. I don't know what's happening with it. It's just a renegade situation up there. Yeah, Ralph is saying he does that. 001 cap on his Les Paul's neck pickup. That's probably what I did. Something like that, I'm sure. Frank says that he just bought an HX Stomp and he's using with a PC and monitors, getting a weird distorted sound. Are you clipping somewhere? Generally speaking, it just means you're nailing the input somewhere. I mean, probably going into your audio interface. How are you plugging it into your computer? The trick is, crank your monitors up all the way and give yourself lots of headroom on the back end. A lot of people, when they start recording in DAWs, I don't know why, like, I guess it's just about recording levels and stuff, but many times I find, like with, let's say take Logic, which I use. So, if you open up a new session, all the faders are set at 0 dB. And generally speaking, if you import a track then and bring it in or something to play along with, I don't know, let's just say you're going to jam to something that's pre-recorded. It's always mastered pretty hot or whatever, and you'll pull a track in and it's clipping already. So like when I start a Logic session, all the faders go down instantly to like -8 or something like that. And then when you're tracking as far as input levels go and getting guitar levels in and stuff, you don't have to be like pushing right up to 0 dB. The standard is like -15, -12, something like that for levels. And when you track everything at that lower level, then you're not running out of headroom in your DAW and stuff. So it's like you don't have to keep pulling the faders out. Because when you track everything super hot, like at plus, or sorry, like -6 or even -3, you're pushing things up to that level. You're gonna find in your DAW you have to pull all the faders down to like -15 because you've got all these hot levels and they're building up exponentially, and then you're pushing out that master fader, and you're gonna find you're clipping it all the time and pushing all that hot level into the bus. So anyway, it's just about gain staging. And that's the other thing. When you want more level, like if you're playing into a computer and using a DAW or something, don't keep pushing up the faders, to bring the monitor level way up, so that when you've got a guitar track at -15, it's at a comfortable volume for playing with. Now you have to be careful, because if you open iTunes or something and it's set at 0 dB and you hit you want to play Back in Black or something, it's going to go down. Ah, God, So you just have to be careful about what you're playing through your DAW. That's all I'm saying. Gain staging. Somebody's up there in the top chat in Canada. It's John, and he says, just thought I would say, gotta order a roasted maple neck. Keep up the groovy videos. Gotta order a roasted maple neck. I love the roasted maple necks, like on that thing right back there. They're so damn stable, This is a relatively thin neck, and it never moves. They do look cool, don't they? Roasted flame is cool too. But this is a beautiful neck with the caramel situation. Looks like you just want to dip it in a cup of coffee. Don't do that. So a few people asked me this week, by the way, about this guitar. Pocket sticking out. This guitar. This is my classic S from many years ago. It's all dirty, which I like. This guitar has a roasted body. So if you look at it's alder. It looks almost like mahogany, right? The color, but it's roasted alder. So they were experimenting with roasting the whole thing. You can see the neck is roasted too. So the whole guitar is roasted. But folks were asking, because I used it this week in a video for that the Tube Screamer, the Maxon TS-808 style pedal. Excuse me. And you can see on the bridge, it's a 6-screw Goto, but I've put the new saddles on, the locking saddles. So these are the saddles from Wilkinson. And it increased the tuning stability on this guitar. This guitar has vintage tuners too. So I'm actually going to switch them out, I think. Because that's the one last place where I could be getting a little bit of tuning instability. But really, it's pretty damn good right now. I had a lot of problems keeping this guitar in tune before with the stock 510. I did. It was my worst offender. I mean, my signature guitar is pretty good, like with the 510, really. But this one with the 6-screw Goto and the vintage saddles, it would always go out of tune. I remember actually Mateus Sasato came by here once, and he was playing, and we were testing something out, and he was playing this guitar, and he kept retuning it all, and I was almost embarrassed that he's such a great guitar player, and he was playing this one, and it was like constant, because he uses the bar, and he's really tasteful, but then he'd be out of tune, and then I was like, God, I got to get that guitar looked at. It just didn't stay in tune good with the old bridge. Probably could have been a setup thing. I could have tweaked and made better. But anyway, putting the new saddles on this plate, which is the original 510 plate, it's just 85 to 90% better. It's as good as I could want it now, really. It stays in tune great. So I play this guitar more now, consequently. Somebody help me out. My English is slipping. What was my point? I don't know. Just that I play it more, I guess. And so I'm enjoying it more. This guitar has the 60s C standard neck on it, which I quite like. And the other thing I did to it when I ordered it is I got the slightly maybe not so common 9 to 12 compound as opposed to 10 to 14. So the fingerboard, and I really like it for a nice playable compound radius on a you want the guitar to feel a bit vintage, a little bit less modern. Try the 9. I think it's 9 or 9.5 to 12 compound radius, as opposed to most SIRs are the 10 to 14, like my signature. It's great. I love the 10 to 14 too, but the 9.5 to 12 is I could go with either. It just feels a bit more vintage and a bit more what you'd expect out of like a vintage Strat or something like that. So it might be something if you want to order a guitar from them or something to consider. I highly recommend the 60C standard neck and the 9.5 to 12. It just feels, it's great. So anyway, enjoying playing that guitar. It's cool. Yeah. Okay. Will Country Bend still go out of tune with the Wilkinson locking saddles on a floating system? Yeah, that's not going to change. I mean, the bridge just operates the same. If you pull, you do a double stop and it's going to pull forward a bit. A trick my friend Al showed me years ago on a Floyd Rose was to lean on the bridge a bit. And you just need to practice it a little bit, but it's a great trick, where you've got a Floyd and you bend up and the one note drops and you just kind of lean on it a little bit. I wonder if I could demonstrate that. I mean, let's try it on this guitar. So if you're doing you hear that note drop? I'm leaning on the bridge a bit. Now it doesn't drop. Now it's in tune. So just put your palm down on the bridge a little bit as you're doing the bend, right? And I can totally keep that note in tune, as opposed to, right? I'll go extreme with it. It went down a little bit. There we go. I'm just leaning on the bridge a little bit more. You just use your ear as you're bending. Just put a little pressure on the bridge, and it can be a little out of tune, and it's cool, right? But it's the sour thing that happens when you bend, and all it is just with your palm. Just give it a little bit of pressure on the bridge, and you're in good shape. So, yeah. 60C is the C profile, says Fender 308. Yeah, I think so. 60C standard, I think. They've renamed some of their profiles, so that's my memory of what it was called when I ordered that guitar. But yeah. Let's see what else we got here. Theo says, I guess you've heard Tim will participate in an online summer camp with PRS. I haven't heard that. That's cool. I mean, I'd be happy to be a part of it. I'm a Sir guy, and he's a fairly in there with PRS, so I don't know if that affects things or not. If it's mainly their players and endorsers and things, could be. What do I think of the Vietnam-made Marshall DSL line? I haven't seen the inside of one. I don't really know, to be honest. I know that my Vox is made in Vietnam. I have a Vox AC15, and it's fairly well built, but it's one of the hand-wired ones, so I can't really comment. If it sounds good, it's cool. I worry a little bit about, I would take it out and have a tech look at it and ask them if I was touring about reliability. That'd be the only thing, like whether or not, is there any, where's the weak spots? Where's the, where this could go bad, like if the tubes are mounted to a board and the board flexes and it's thin, or there's traces, all those things that somebody like Sir or Friedman can look at and, maybe diagnose where the trouble could exist and whether or not you want to rely on it. But Buzz says Tone Talk is still going. I figured they'd go until at least noon or 1 or something. So I gave Dave crap about it yesterday. I was like, don't do your show on Sunday. It's okay once in a while. It's like, we're all vying for the good time. And it's like I say in England, in the UK, it's now 9 p.m. or something, or 8 or 9 p.m. So, they had to come up with some time to do it. Can I demonstrate the bending harmonic thing I said EVH was doing? I don't know how he did it. That's the thing. He goes, you ever do this? You ever slide? It was sliding. He goes, you ever slide harmonics? And then he played this thing and no. How are you doing that? And he'd play and it was ripping loud. I mean, it was like, he was standing right in front of me. It was coming through the big monitors of the studio and he was playing this thing. And and I was like, just, it's like a am I in a dream moment for me? So watching him play. So when he's warmed up and just ripping, so I was just like that. I wasn't really like, let me figure out exactly what he's doing. I was more like having a it's like watching your spiritual guitar Godfather blow your mind. So anyways, Inventor says in some sort of top chat situation there, he says something about perfect number of strings taking into account the 6th string last 15 times. Huh? I can't read that, dude. It's too early in the morning. Something about there's a lot of numbers and something about Yeah, see that? I didn't understand. I don't understand. I clicked on it, I guess, didn't I? Okay. Back to the chat here. Any thoughts on Tremolo Stabilizers? On one guitar, I have one of those tremolos. Work quite well. The biggest thing about the Tremolo Stabilizer that I found was that it actually helped the tone of the guitar I had it on. I liked the sound of it when you would lock the trem, but then it made it kind of like, oh, I don't want to unlock it now and use the bar. It sounded like the sustain and everything increased. When I locked the tremolo, it was just like the solidity or something of the tone. Like, is that a word? Solidity. I think it is. Increased. It was like just the guitar resonated more. The problem I had with the tremolo is that the stupid screws on the back used to fall out all the time. Those two little thumbs. Does everybody know what I'm talking about? It's a thing that replaces the middle screw on a tremolo, and you can set the tremolo in your guitar to operate as normal, or you can lock it a certain way, and then the bridge will only go down but not up. So if you want to do drop D or whatever, and then you can set it another way, and it completely fixes the bridge and doesn't allow it to go either way. Kind of cool. A little bit problematic and gimmicky to me, so I only put it on one guitar. I still have it on that guitar, but I lost both thumb screws ages ago, and it's just sitting in there wide open. I should show you guys that guitar. Kind of a cool guitar I have, actually. I'm going to get it so that I can just show you what this, and just for another reason, too. 1 second. Okay, so this guitar is maybe the first guitar I ever ordered similar to my signature model. It's pretty cool, right? It's a T with a black, I think, what do they call this? Dark cherry or something top, which is metallic and pretty bitchin'. I got to play this guitar more and get it set up and stuff because it's pretty damn cool. Right now I've got the Fishman. Last thing I did with this guitar was the Fishman synth video, like for their synth pickup, which is what you see here, which is pretty damn cool. And I had a lot of fun doing that video. This thing comes off. I don't know if I might put this on another guitar or something, but because I'd like to get this guitar set up with Thornbuckers. Right now it's got SSV. This was pre-Thornbucker when this guitar was made. It's got a 510 with the vintage saddles, which is this is the exact bridge that I had problems keeping in tune on that white guitar. Push-pull for, I think this is series parallel, and then it's got a blower switch on it. So if anybody, this one will go straight to the bridge pickup. So I could, for instance, have the volume down and be on the neck pickup, and then hit the bridge and just be bridge wired straight to the output jack. So some cool things. It's got it's a really nice guitar, actually. I got to get this guitar working again. I'm gonna do some tweaks to it and start using this thing more. Check out the headstock. It's got the hybrid headstock with a black shelf. Pretty nice, right? Yeah. So why did I want to show you this? Oh yeah, the tremolo. So there it is in the back, and you can see it replaces the middle spring, and there's 2 holes in the middle. Those are where the thumb screws go. And I just lost them years ago. It fell out. So I'll probably just take that thing out. Oh, it doesn't replace the middle. Excuse me. It's in addition to the middle spring. So it's in the 4th slot there, kind of, and there's another spring you can't see behind here. So my memory, that shows you how good your memory is. Yeah, it goes. It's not even in the slot, is it? It's just kind of a custom thing that I'm just going to take it out because I don't end up using it. Yes, it's kind of cool, but anyway. That's this guitar. So this was really this is all mahogany body, maple top, rosewood neck. Sorry, rosewood fingerboard, maple neck. No, it's a rosewood neck. Right, it's a mahogany neck. It's a mahogany back and a mahogany neck and a rosewood fingerboard and maple top, exactly like my signature model. So this was the precursor really to the signature guitar, and I had this in 2009. I ordered this, I think 2008, 2009. So this is over 10 years old. But yeah, I was toying with the mahogany thing way before my signature model, I guess even a few years, as well as the scrape binding and the black back and all that stuff. So it's pretty cool looking, I think. I love the look of this. Look at that thing. Sweet, right? I got to start using it again. Let's put it on the carpet over here where it'll be safe. And, next time I go out there, I'm going to run that out to them and have a couple little tweaks done. Okay. What else we got here? Very interesting. That's a beautiful sir, says Robert. Thank you. Yeah, it's called Dark Cherry Metallic, I think. Yeah, that guitar has extra nerdy stuff attached, even by Thorn standards. I would agree with that. That's why I'm going to unnerd it just a little bit. The synth thing's cool, though. Did you guys see the video I did with the Fishman? It's called the Triple Play. So you can check it out if you want to. Kind of amazing. I mean, you know, as far as like being able to play synth bass sounds off the guitar and stuff and huge pads and things, I had a lot of fun making the video. I remember playing like Strawberry Fields or something on that guitar when I pulled up a Mellotron patch. It's just fun, you know. How many Sirs do I own? Says Derek up there in the top chat. I am embarrassed to say I'm not actually sure. It's not. I've never counted. Going back, my first one was that blue one that I don't own anymore, but I replaced it with the Sunburst one that now has a Floyd on it. And after that, I got a T that you don't see in many videos anymore because it needs some love too. The frets are pitted and stuff. It's like a 52 style T. So I've got that in the other room. Those were the first couple. I have one of each color of my signature guitar. So that's 4. And then I have 4 classics, a modern. So it's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 or something like that, along those lines. I don't know. It's 4 strats. I feel like S's, a few T's, a couple T's, 4 of my signature, and a modern. Something along those lines. It's not crazy. I heard about a kid the other day that has 9. So he's like just a young kid. So trying to make myself feel better here. Come on. I remember that Sir from the Sheba video. Yeah, I used it in the Sheba video. I used it on a lot of stuff, actually. I played it on my last record. It's the guitar that's on a bunch of the tracks on what's All Is Not Lost, which is the song in 6/8 that started out as a Vintage Revolution Pedal Pro or whatever that thing was called demo back in 2013. It's if anybody knows that song off my last record, I used that guitar for a bunch of the parts. It's a cool guitar. Okay. Why an Ego Comp and Unit 67 on your board? Great question. They do a very different thing. The Ego Comp I used a lot for the Rangemaster, and so it's doing a mid boost thing. It's got tone controls on it, and so I'll boost a bit with it, use a bit of compression. It's more of I don't even really perceive the compression with the Unit 67, the way I have it set for a little bit of compression, mainly boost, and then kind of a snarly mid boost. And so it's a very colored thing. The Ego Comp is completely uncolored and doing a much more of a traditional kind of, like clean tone compressed thing. Its job is to even things out. I'm not boosting with it or anything like that. I hit it and it just evens the, so it's a different sound. Clean, I would say one's a clean compressor and the other one's a dirty boost with a hint of compression. Yeah. Ty Tabor has a live stream going concurrently with yours. Oh man. Sorry, Ty. I wonder if he's gotten more into, doing that stuff. Is it probably right? It gets busy on Sundays. Sunday's a good day to do these things, I guess. Henry James says, did you take out your bright cap in your Marshall? Also, what tube brand do you replace in the power preamp in your Marshall? Thank you. It sounded excellent in the Iron Man attenuator demo. So I guess you're talking about the 50 watt there. So that amp currently has 100 PF bright, which would be similar to what you would find in a JTM 45. The SL68 up there has no bright cap. That's the way they've shipped them for a long time. And I believe that Germino down there that I've talked about on the last show doesn't have one right now either, although there might be. I can't remember what we ended up with on that amp. But anyway, I like in a plexi. What I've come to realize is, with single coils, it can be cool to have no bright cap. I think I prefer the 100 PF overall. If I could only have one thing, it would be that, because it just gives you, as that cap gets bigger, you get more and more down into the lower treble frequencies. So it's letting more and more top end through. So the 100 PF is just the high highs, and as you bring the volume down, you keep that, and it's not quite as dark. The bigger the cap goes, like Marshall was using in the 70s, it gets brighter and brighter and brighter into that aggressive ice picky thing where it's like you bring the amp up to 3 or 4 and you're like, holy, that's like unusable, But the thing is, it's all this balancing act because it is part of the sound. And I always say that people used to use their Marshalls. Nobody bought a Marshall to play in their bedroom or play quiet. Everybody was in bands, and they all had a 412 and a Marshall 50 or whatever. And you'd turn the thing up to 7 because that's where it sounded like rock and roll, or 6, and even on a JCM 800, it was like that. You'd run the preamp pretty. Like who run their JCM 800 low and tried to using pedals and all that. Like nobody did that shit, and nobody was playing with pedals if they had a JCM 800. Maybe they had a tube screamer or a OD, a 250 or something like Yngwie, or they had a fuzz or something in front. But everybody was getting the grind out of the amp using the volume control on the guitar. So my point is that you would be mostly taking that bright cap largely out of the equation by turning the preamp up to a certain point where the amp sounded good. And where that point where the amp sounded good, the bright cap was still in a little or a lot, depending on the value of the cap, if it was a big cap. But it had an impact on the sound. That aggressive Marshall, Kerrang was partially. I mean, it's a huge part of the sound, to be honest. My top hat, which is over there, has a switch on it labeled, it's like vintage, or it's like a 68, 73 kind of thing. And the only thing it does is take the bright cap out. So when you turn it on, it just sounds more aggressive and more rock. When you take it out with a lot of guitars, it sounds a little dull. I find that's the thing, is that it makes the amp a little more, it can work with pedals and it can work with single coils and all that good stuff, but it makes the amp a little more ho-hum and a little less gah. And so, I ended up with the 100 because it does a little bit of that thing and makes it a very, very versatile amp. I still wish and this is something you can do with a Marshall, is easily put it on a switch. If you don't mind modding the amp a little bit, you can have the bright on a switch and you could have, say, 3 values on a mini toggle and go for 100 or 500 or the big, the huge one. And it'll give you that snarly cut. At some point on the volume pot, the problem with the big cap is it makes the amp less versatile and makes it a one-trick pony where it only sounds good and, either on 10 or down a little bit, The down a little bit will depend on the value of that cap, but it's a great trick. It's a one-trick pony, but a great trick. So what if you just put that on a switch? Off in 2 values or something, and now you can have much more versatile amp. I mean, it's huge. It makes the amp like it's such a massive. I can't tell people enough, if they haven't messed with a bright cap on a Marshall, what a massive difference it makes in the tone. It affects the entire sound of the amp more than the tubes or anything. With that said, somebody was asking me about tubes. Same fella, Henry, was asking me about what tubes I use. I find the EH power tubes are really good. That's what we're using in the PT100 now. JJ's get a little sketchy, and so, but the EH are really reliable and they sound good. They sound kind of like, I remember Siemens sounding, those old, Eastern European tubes. Similar, that small bottle, they do the right thing. I don't know, they sound cool. I always remember Brian from Top Hat, when I had that very amp, and I got it many, many, many years ago, maybe since 98 or 9 or so. I've had that amp over 20 years. It's an Amplexador. And I remember taking it to him to have it retubed and biased, and he put in some Svetlanas, and he put the old ones, the real Russian Svetlana ones that everybody was raving about at the time, and EHs. He goes, I like the EHs better, and I'm going to show you why. And he had 2 bias, like 2 that matched. And we listened to the EHs and we listened to the Svetlanas, and like loud. So 50 watts. It wasn't crazy, but, and I was like, oh yeah, the Svetlanas just kind of like weird or something. I don't know. It's super, I'm talking, into distortion. And the EHs just sounded pleasantly Marshall with this great kind of mid-range crunch. So I like the EHs. And for pre-tubes, I still like the Chinese ones. There's some supply problems with those right now, but in a Marshall or something, to me, they just sound right. Good, tested, quiet Chinese 12AX7 is my favorite new ones. Overall, there's others too, but JJ77 is up there in the top chat, and he says, I enjoy your amp videos. Can you do a video explaining the benefits of splitting amps? Example for Shantae with a Marshall Major and a Silver Jubilee. Yeah, I could do that. That's a great idea for a video. Actually, I've got a list here, and I should write it down on my list of interesting video ideas. Why don't I do that? Amp, what you called it, amp splitting, or 2 amps video. Get down for sure. I did. The thing is, Bob Rock talked about it on the Tone Talk that I was on a couple weeks ago, where he really likes to do it. You get a blended sound that's more complex and bigger than any one amp could give you. So who are people that have done this? Stevie Ray Vaughan with Vibroverb and 410 Super Reverb would be a great example. He used to run both those amps at the same time. I can't imagine how good that probably sounded when you were standing there. Well, I think I heard it actually. I saw him live on one tour, and I was standing right in front of him. So, and I remember it sounded amazing, but I wasn't really clued into exactly what he was using amp wise and everything. But I'm sure it was that, because it was around that period, 84, and he might have had a Dumble there or something too. I don't know, but he used to use the Dumbles too, and he used to use a Dumble or Fender or whatever, and a maybe Marshall Major, I think. So he did that too. What you're saying Frusciante did. Marshall Major is a loud, clean Marshall, very loud, and something like that combined with a Silver Jubilee is going to get, obviously you're going to get the sweet mids and the grind and stuff out of one, and then you're going to get a big fat clean sound. Another person I can think of that did this is Alex Lifeson. I found it very, really fascinating reading about the way that he recorded a lot of records using certainly the Marshall combos, the Club and Country or whatever that he used. He was talking about, it was an old interview, and he was talking about how he would run one clean and one dirty. And then in the studio, they would just blend them. So he had one set clean and one set quite dirty. And that's why he had that complex blended, where there was clarity when he would arpeggiate, but you could bring up the dirty one or the clean one, and they would that was how he recorded. And then they would blend them in the mix and stuff. And I think that's probably similar to what he did live too. Talking around, like, for instance, the Grace Under Pressure tour, I think that's what he was using. Certainly probably around like Permanent Waves, Signals. I think he was using those Marshalls by then. Earlier, he used, high watts and stuff like that. And I don't know if he did the clean dirty thing back in like Farewell to Kings and stuff like that. But anyway, around that, the later, maybe starting around Moving Pictures or that period, he was using those Club and Countries, and dirty clean thing. It's kind of cool. Other people, Adam from Tool, who uses a modern dirty amp as well as a Friedman modified Marshall Super Bass that I think was modded to Super Lead spec, maybe 73 or so. But anyway, the vintage Plexi style amp with a modern gain amp. So I could easily do that here, where I do something like the SL68 combined with, I've got a SLO 100 here. So now down there. There it is. You can see it. So something like that, combining maybe the 50 watt Marshall with that and doing a hard, I'd be happy to, a neat way to do it might be to play both amps at once blended and do a double tracked thing with drums where you could hear what that sounded like. So the Marshall and the Soldano or whatever on one side, and then the same thing on the other side, track a stereo guitar part, do that. Then maybe like do the Marshall on one side and the Soldano on the other side, and then like just, two guitars and listen to what that blended sound sounds like. And then maybe do 2 tracks of the Marshall so you can hear how that sounds more like, it's going to end up sounding a little less dimensional, where everything's filled in. It's always a thing where you blend two sounds that are doing a slightly different thing, or maybe a very different thing, and you get a blended tone that's a little bit more complex than you could get any other way. It's always more complicated. That's the only thing, but I could do it here without too much trouble, really. It's not really that hard at all to especially using load boxes would be the easiest way for me to do it. If I'm miking, it's going to be more complicated, but I can figure that out too. I got a robotic mic mount this week. I'm excited to hook that up. You guys seen those where they move the mic moves on? Tim Pierce has been using them for years, but I'm going to put my 57 on it so that I can move the mic around, find the optimum spot. It'll go in and out, and also back and forth on the speaker, so you can go out towards the edge, back in. Pretty cool. Do I think Yellow Jackets work? I've always wondered that. That's Mr. K. So the Yellow Jacket was a THD thing They're tube adapters, so you can put them in an EL34 6L6 slot on an amp, and it converts the amp to EL84 and allows you to drop the power down to like 20 watts for a 2-tube amp. I'd have to ask John about that. I wonder, like Sir or maybe Friedman. I don't have any experience with them. I never tried them. This is some folks talking in the hall, so I'm gonna close the door. I don't have any experience with them, so I'm not sure. But I've always wondered. It seemed kind of like a strange concept to me. Like, can that really be good for your amp and work? But maybe it's okay. I don't know. I'm not speaking out of any experience when I say that, so nothing against THD. Maybe they're perfectly safe. The THD folks were pretty smart. One of the best sounding amps I ever tried was a THD. It was some sort of tweed thing. It's so 25 years ago that I played that thing, but I remember playing some THD tweed amp from the mid 90s that sounded amazing. And then I still have, and it's in storage, a Flexi 50. Does anybody remember those? I'd like to get it and actually bring it here. It's in a storage unit that I have, but I haven't tried it forever. Flexi 50. It was kind of a cool amp. It had a Bandex Sol. Am I saying that right? A EQ stack. So an interesting kind of EQ that was very active, as I remember. And they made it, it's called the Flexi 50. You could use any power tube. So 6L6, 6V6, EL34, just plug them in. I mean, maybe not any. I don't think it took EL84s because the socket's different. I think for that, maybe they recommended using the thing that you got me talking about, but the yellow jackets. But you could put any kind of power tube in it and automatically biased and all. Maybe you had to bias. Can't remember if it's got bias points on it. Anyway, really pretty cool sounding amp. Like, not great for metal or something, but at least up to rock tones. It was cool. Had a clean channel and then a boost that I think it was like not technically a 2-channel amp. It'd be more like the Dumble thing where you're, putting a boost in line with the one channel and it gives it overdrive or something. But it had its own sound. It did sound kind of martially, kind of cool. It was in that cage, Anybody remember these? Flexi 50. Flexi 50. Drop Foot says PT2 is really good on my phone. The Dirty Town video. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Thanks. I do appreciate it. Where's my Hedgehog 50? I've run out of space. So occasionally I swap amps out depending on what I'm doing. So it's here, but it just is not in the rack there. There's only room in the rack for 3 things right now. And I'm doing some videos occasionally for the preamps for Synergy. So I've got one of those filled up. And then I've got right now, the Marshall 50 and the Germino, which was modded by Friedman in there, and the Soldano, because I'm just messing with different high gain things and stuff. And of course, I've got my 15 here, which is the amp I use the most, the PT15, of course, and the Comet in here. So that's what's in there right now. But it's sort of heavily leaning on the distortion side of things, I would say, right now. Maybe a indication of my distorted brain. My clean amps are really the 50. The clean channel in the 15 is just a thing that surprises me all the time, that how great it sounds. I mean, with pedals and I just kind of like don't really, I mean, it's awesome. It's just like I don't need anything else. And then on the Princeton, I've got the little Princeton Silverface over here, which is a stock. It's got the Celestion in it, and it's the stock 68, whatever. And you guys hear it in some of my videos. I used it recently, I think, in that the Superplexy video and stuff for one of the solos. And it's great. Like, between that little thing with the 10-inch speaker in it and the PT15 over here on the clean channel, I love the clean sounds I get with that. And then distortion just ends up being this endless search for things, And of course, the PT15 on the distortion channel, I mean, I could do the rest of my life with that amp and be just fine. Oh, brother. Pete Thorn missed super chat. I missed a super chat from somebody. Sorry about that. Somebody was asking me, am I an Oilers fan? That's Ben Coombs helping me out there. Thanks, Ben. I hear you are from Edmonton. So I was big, and right below that, somebody saying Gretzky and Messier and Curry and Grant Fuhr. So those guys I remember because I'm not really a sports fan, to be honest. Like I don't pay attention to a lot of professional sports, but you can't be from Edmonton and not be an Oilers fan. It's impossible. So my dad had season tickets when I was a kid growing up, and I used to go to a lot of those Oilers games with him, and I always enjoyed it. And that when it was the dream team, it was exactly like Führer, Messier, Gretzky, Yari Curry. Who else? Anybody remember? What was his name? Oh, Marty. It was McSorley, right? And who was the enforcer? Come on the Oilers. That dude was gnarly. Semenko, Dave Semenko. Anybody remember him? If you're from Edmonton, of course you do. Anyway, it was a wonderful time in sports. I remember when Gretzky got traded to LA. I mean, to be from Edmonton and when that happened, it was such a big moment and kind of devastating. And I don't think Gretzky wanted to go. And he was traded away by the manager, and it was an $18 million deal. That is nothing in today's modern sports terms. But back then, that was like all the money in the world. I think it was the biggest trade that had ever, in the NHL. Biggest money trade when Gretzky was traded to the LA Kings. So that was around 89 or 90, 89, I guess. And so he left and went to LA. And this was the Oilers, the dynasty. They'd won 4 cups, I think, in the 80s. And they were just the most badass hockey team, next to Montreal that had probably ever existed at that point. Maybe certainly one of the most badass ever. And there was this wonderful thing about it. I don't know. It was just a source of civic pride from a city that didn't really have, like, Edmonton was okay. It was cool, but it wasn't like, it's not like, Vancouver, Toronto, or these cities that were like more Canadian, or Montreal, like the cool places to be from or whatever. Everyone was more blue collar, working class, but we had this team that was like devastating. And so it was a real source of civic pride anyway, growing up there. And so anyway, he gets traded away. Gretzky goes away. They lose the cup the next year. Everybody's super bummed. And it's like, oh, the dynasty's over. And the next year they win. And I was at that game. I won the game. I was at the game where they won without Gretzky, and Messier was the captain. And I can't tell you the energy. That was the room I also went to, AC/DC and, Def Leppard, Van Halen, and every concert under the sun in. So I saw a lot of stuff in the Northlands Coliseum in Edmonton, but I was at that game where they won the Stanley Cup without Gretzky. And I will never forget Messier skating around with the cup above his head, just like on one skate. And it was like the city was, they closed the city down. I mean, the party that night, trying to drive home was just like, it was insane. The city lost their minds that when they won, it was like the biggest thing when they won without Gretzky, because it's like, we still got it. And that was the last one they ever won. But it was a hell of a night. I remember that. It was anyway, so I sound like a fan, don't I think. Thanks for the super chat. And I'm sorry I missed it, but I'm glad that, Ben, thanks for alerting me to that. What's your opinion of your Lab Series amp, says Jason? Great. Really terrific sounding amplifier in its own way. It's got that one sound. It's like Ty said in that interview I did with Ty Tabor, where he said, if you don't know how to set it. So the key to it is the mids are cranked. And where he sets the mid frequency is very important. Is the mids are cranked, right? Yeah, the mids are on 10. The treble is on 10 or close. And the mids frequency is about 3/4 the way up. And if you set it like that and put the volume on 10, then it sounds amazing. In its own solid state way, but it's a cool sound. It's very fast. It's very immediate, but it sounds like that Ty Tabor thing. And it's a really neat sound. It feels good to play. It's cool. Henry James in the top chat, super duper chat, says, what higher gain boost would you suggest for my Anderson with Thornbuckers into a Sur SL68? Boss Waza SD1 or Hagerman boost, or maybe something else. The Hagerman's really nice and kind of a modded kick the front end with the tube way. I mean, that thing I was really impressed with. I have an EP Pre JHS Bonsai tube screamer. A Coco boost is pretty amazing in its own way, because it's not a dirty, it doesn't add dirt of its own, but that targeted mid-range thing, if you want a screaming mid-tone that sings, it's kind of amazing. It's not an overdrive, but it won't have that kind of like grainy feel to it that overdrives can give you, like the fake feel. It feels like a part of the amp. I don't know how else to describe it. Coco mid boost into the front end. It's like a more polite treble booster, because it's more in the mids and less, it's the frequency it's happening at. But I highly recommend it, trying it. A Coco is pretty magic. Guthrie Govan is a big user of that for, long time. He really liked the way it just sounds. It bonds with the amp and boosts. There's something about a EQ boost that, when it's not adding its own dirt, it's cool. some offbeat ones you might try. Something that came to mind is the Space Charged from Crazy Tube Circuits. That's another tube one that you could check out. That's really cool. High gain kind of, essentially what we're talking about here is almost doing the Jose thing, where you're adding a tube to the front end and then tailoring the sound of that tube. And I've learned so much about the Jose mods in the last little while, but whether it was really a mid boost because he would sometimes cut high end and then shelve a lot of low end, and it was essentially this tube creating the distortion, but a mid-range boost going into the, and if you do that with a high voltage tube, it's a much different sound to me than a pedal, which is like a sort of reasonable facsimile of the same thing. So something like an SD1, is its own thing. I mean, in the the Boss style Waza SD1, it sounds cool. It's got an 80s thing to it, and you're kind of getting to the same place where you're boosting the front end with a pedal. But when you do it with a high voltage tube in the front end, it feels organic, like a part of the amp, and there's nothing that feels pedalish about it. When I say something feels like a pedal, I notice it a lot when I go, there's like a soft attack to them, like pedals, 9-volt pedals. And when you go up here on the neck into, who said recently it's the Neil Schoen part of the neck, maybe that was Tom Bukovac. But when you get up here on the on this part of the neck, like on the low strings is what I'm getting at, up like above, say, the 10th fret, pedals like Screamers and stuff, they have this thing that they do where it's this soft attack thing, and a tube pedal doesn't feel like that, or even a high voltage, let's say the I don't know, the Bogner pedals that operate at 18 volts, for instance, and stuff, they don't really feel like that. They have a more like that fast attack, and they sound more like a tube, to me. I don't know how else to describe it. Something working at high voltage with a fast attack, as opposed to something that's working at low voltage has got this soft attack, and kind of the attack sort of flubs out up here. Yeah. So that can be a sound people want, though, that soft thing. So it just depends on what you want. Hope that answers your question, though. Braxall's asking me if I've been working on a drum programming video. No, I guess I should do that. I'm working on a video right now. Okay, so on this topic, I'll show you what the video I'm working on right now is. It's for a drive, but this is a really interesting pedal. It's the number 5. Look at this thing. Number 5 from Sinvertech, the new version of it. Sinvertech is a really interesting company. It's a guy in China, and he's really passionate about guitar tone. And I've met him a few times. His name is Wu Nan. He's a really very nice guy, and he's just really into making quality, cool pedals. And these pedals are an insight into his mind, I think, because when you look at this thing, you're like, oh my God, look at that. But he really has kind of thought of everything. It's got 3 different gain level settings, so vintage, ultra, and modern. And then it's got a full EQ, bass, middle, treble, presence. And it's got a bunch of options as far as shifting the mid-range EQ, the frequency. But this thing is really like a distorted amp with a bunch of mods built in a pedal, and it really does sound good. I'm doing the video for it right now, and I'm doing kind of a modern grindy track. I was using the Nags guitar with high output pickups, and I'm showing 3 different guitars that I'm doing. I've got the ultra, the vintage, and the modern mode all panned, and bringing in the different sounds, and then I'll solo those out in the video, the individual parts, of course, like I always do. But it takes a few minutes to get your head around, and then when you try it into a good clean sound, you're like, holy shit, like this pedal's really pretty, like, amazing, like as far as its ability to it's got a 3-position switch for the low end, tight, full, and like something else, and it really works, like depending on where you're trying to do the more of the Jose kind of thing, like tight, which involves a lot of shelving of the low end and then high distortion kind of. It's like an amp mod powerhouse in a pedal. And maybe he bumps up to 18 volts. I don't know, because it does feel like an amp. But this is what I'm working on right now for a video. I owe him the video for a few months now. I mean, it's taking me forever to get it done. But now that I get it, it's sometimes things like this, they intimidate me. I look at them, I'm like, oh man, this is going to be some work. But as with all his pedals, they're really quality. And once I get into it, I kind of enjoy it, because it's like, this thing is really deep. It's like, and it sounds good. That's the main thing. When if you plug this in and it sounds ho-hum, it's the hardest thing in the world. If you plug it in and it sounds really good, it's like, this is, I get inspired by it. I don't know. It's cool, So yeah. Anyways, so that's what I've been working on. I can only work on so many videos. I did another project this week that I can't talk about, but I'm really excited about it. And it's for I can't tell you what it is, but it's for they're doing a Lollapalooza this year. That's all online, of course, because nobody can have a concert. So it's one of those simulcast things. But I'm performing with an artist on that, and I produced a track and put it together for them. And so that was a main focus of the week, not so much on demo videos, but an actual musical project that I'm really excited about. But it turned out really great. I can't wait till I think it's 2 weeks from now. It's Thursday through Sunday, 2 weeks from now, and it'll be one of those online things where they broadcast all the videos and you'll see But I'm really proud of it, and it ended up sounding really great. And I got some good friends to work on it and stuff. And so anyway, that'll be in a couple of weeks. I'll let you guys know when it's announced and stuff. I just can't tell you what it is yet. But so that took my majority of my week, I guess, doing those couple of things. What else? What else? Looking forward to Dave's vintage line of amps, says Robin. Was he talking about that? Yeah, he wants to do a vintage line of some sort, which I think is a great idea. He was mentioning that to me as well. How did you use set the SP compressor when it was still on your board? So you're talking about the exotic. Generally speaking, I put both knobs somewhere close to in the middle, maybe between 11 and 1. So there's an output and a compression amount, I think. And I would set the compressor usually to medium. I think that was an attack setting. Can't remember, but that always sounded pretty good to me. Probably not unlike I set the Wampler that's on there now. I like them both about equally, actually, the Wampler and the SP. They're both excellent small compressors. Any advice to share that changed your playing from a mentor? Yeah. Okay. A really important one for me was a great guitar player, an educator named Richard Smith. Teaches at USC still, I think. But I really liked him. He was just a great demeanor, and I don't know. It's a great like you say, a mentor. He's like a mentor figure with this great energy. And I remember jamming with him at MI because he used to teach at MI and do some open counseling. And I remember sitting in there, and I used to go in and play with him. And we would, he'd trade solos, and then he'd critique you and stuff and try and help you out with your playing. So I remember playing with him, and I was playing rhythm. He said, let's jam on this progression, something simple. We're playing, I was playing the rhythm guitar, and he was playing some cool lead stuff. It was very sort of soulful and cool. No, I'm not talking about shredding here. He had great phrasing, and, not that shredders don't have great phrasing, but you know what I mean? Mellow. And so we're playing, and then he goes, all right, take it or whatever. And he goes to playing the rhythm, and I kind of went, and then I came in with a phrase. And he goes, stop right there. And I was like, what? What happened? What did I do wrong? And he was like, you just sound this week like you've been playing 5 years longer than last week when I heard you. And I was like, what did I do? And he goes, you waited until you came in. Phrasing, I think is what he was getting at. You don't have to come in on beat 1 all the time and take up all the space. So I always remember that. He was like, right there. You sounded like, and that you thought about what you're doing. Like, in other words, your inner singing voice kind of, he's like, you're making that work. You're not looking at the guitar and playing a lick. You thought about what you wanted to say, and then you said it. And then you break, think about what you want to say again. So I remember getting that from him that day, and always internalizing that and trying to, go, that's so important. Like, we're having a conversation, and he nailed it, in saying that. And I guess he heard that in my playing that week or whatever. And then I'll never forget that. It was one of the most important things I learned the whole year at MI. It's those little gems that I took away from it. Like, that'll always work for me for the rest of my life, like, to always go back to that. If I don't know what to play, if I'm working on a song or working on a solo or something, I'm in a session, I'm here, I'm wherever I am, I'm live, I'm playing live, I can always think about that moment and remember what I'm supposed to be doing, So that was really important. Any chance of releasing the new red guitar as a signature, sir, says Frank? Not exactly, but leaning in that direction, maybe talking about things. So the thing I'm afraid of with this guitar, number one, is the neck is a little bit maybe thin for some folks. I think this is a great neck for Sir to have as something that folks could order. and they have it now because it was digitized. It's the neck shape from my old Jackson that I grew up playing. But it is, even for me, it's on the thin side. I can play it and I like it and everything. I play this guitar a lot, but I realized after I got it and it's done, it basically nails the neck shape. They did exactly what I wanted, and it's a little thin for me these days. So, my preference. So I don't want to change it or anything. Kind of, I can take guitars and play them for what they are. It doesn't bother me. I can play a guitar with a fat neck or a thin neck and enjoy the guitar for what it is. And that's the way I feel like about this one. It's a great neck. It's just a little bit on the thin side. That's all. So I wish it had a bit more of a, it'd be fine in the shoulder, but if it came out to a bit more of a V in the middle, it would be more what I'm used to these days, not getting too far away from actually what my signature guitar is, just a little thicker in the back. So anyway, that's the only thing about this. I know folks really like the aesthetic, and I do too. And I mean, I want to eventually be doing things, you see me play this guitar a lot, and I love the true neck single coil and stuff like that. So there's going to be, at some point, something leaning in that direction more. But I want to do, this is a classic that you could spec out, basically, with this bridge, and it's not really that different than other, what I'm saying. So I want to do something that's a little more signature. That's all. So coming soon, not soon, relatively soon in the grand scheme of the universe. The Guitar Effect up there in the top chat, he's in the UK. He says, "Hey Pete, something I find really tricky is knowing how much gain is enough for mid-gain sounds, like the riff from Black Days." That's an interesting one that you pick. That's a great tone. I have no idea what was played on that guitar, or like if it was a telly maybe, or something. It sounds like a telly to me, or like maybe it's the Gretsch or something. How much gain is enough for mid gain? You want to play with just as much gain as is comfortable, and then back it off a hair. That's what I always find. That's usually a good gauge. Set it to where it feels, great, and then it's usually a little too dirty, and just back it down, and then practice to get good at playing it like that, and that's enough for the part generally. I don't know, as a general rule. Less gain always sounds more powerful to me. I mean, unless you're going for a fuzz distortion bed of wall of sound thing, right? But if you're looking for the attack and all that, and you want to hear the attack of the pick and punch, you got to watch how much gain you use. So yeah, set it to where it feels great, and then just turn it down a hair. Another top chat up there, KMD Vedkov, somebody up there. Thanks, man. He says, "Pete, have you tried current new Jim Kelly line amp?" I haven't. I have a Jim Kelly reverb that was made by Sir. I would assume it's similar in some respects, but maybe different. I wish Jim all the best with his amps. So he's doing stuff, and he's a great guy, and he's a brilliant guy, and he's an original, in the way he thinks about things and stuff. And I like that. He's kind of a pioneer in the way that he, his amps, as John Sir said to me a long time ago, he's not really like anything else. They were very unique, which is saying a lot in the amp world these days. Even Marshalls were starting from a Fender, he did some original things with the circuit for sure. Brian George says, "Any tips with miking an amp live? When I have my Marshall Super Bass and Power Station Marshall 412 mic, the sound through main sounds like so filtered." Like thin. It would depend. Are you using a 57? If you want a more natural sound, you could try a microphone. So many times live large diaphragm condensers can work well on guitar amps for a natural kind of sound, full frequency kind of sound. One that I really always loved was the 4050 from Audio Technica, and I don't know if they still make that mic, but I remember just having I used one on a tour once, and I'd also heard other guitar players who toured the B52s once, and their guitar player used those 4050s on 2 AC30s, I think. And the guitar sounded incredible. I remember talking to the engineer saying, "What's that tone? Like, it just sounds so cool and natural, like an AC30 in the PA." And he said 4050s. And that was the first time I heard of somebody using it on guitar amps. But then I've heard others since then. So that's a great mic. I've done tours with Shure KSM 32s on guitar amps. They work pretty good too. But the 4050 was really exceptional. A ribbon mic can be great for a natural thing too. They're always a little dark is the only thing, but you can EQ them. Like for many years, I think Steve Stevens was using I think he's gone to IRs now, but he was using the VR1 from SE, on his cabs, and he really liked it for a natural kind of sound. It's going to sound much more natural. You know, a 57 is a great thing, and it's awesome live and stuff. But in a PA, maybe it can be a little cutting or a little, like on a record, it's a good thing. I don't know. It's kind of weird. People live many times tend to prefer natural sounding mics for live that sound a little bit more like the full frequency in the amp. On records, I find the colored mics are what people lean towards many times. I don't know, like 409s and 609s. Those can work live too, but some of the best guitar sounds I've heard are the large diaphragm, the natural sounding mics or ribbons. You know, you see Slash use that red Shure ribbon a lot. You know, it's got a red kind of like, you know, large body ribbon mic, and you'll see him use those on his cabs live. For distortion, they can just take a lot of the hash out of the signal and make it sound really natural in the PA. And I guess depending on the rest of your rig and stuff, that can be a good thing. Or so I would try that. A different mic maybe is what you want to hear. Either a ribbon or a large diaphragm condenser if you're already using a 609 or a 906 or a 57 or something along those lines. Yeah. My knees hurt says that is what I struggle with playing alone. I feel like I need to be playing all the notes all the time. It's getting back to what I was saying, like you don't need to play so much. I mean, listen to the phrasing of somebody like Larry Carlton. Go to the great phrasers and listen to what they're doing. Larry Carlton or BB King. You know, there's two great ones to listen to. Robin Ford is if you want a little bit more, you know, a little bit more notey and stuff. But the phrasing's exceptional, you know. And just learn some of their solos and try and internalize some of that stuff. And you'll be like, oh, yeah, they're breaking it up into really musical phrases with musical breaks. And they're saying a lot with every note, you know, really targeting target notes that make sense. Oh, that's interesting. Somebody's saying Cornell used a jazz master on Fell on Black Days. See, I didn't know that. I learn stuff here every week. Lieutenant 89. I don't know if it's true, but I hope you're right. Because that would make sense. A jazz master. That's interesting. I've never seen him with a jazz master, or playing one, or I've never heard that, but that's really interesting. One thing, tying this in with the early discussion, I'm friends with Michael Beinhorn these days. I haven't talked to him a lot, man, and recently he moved. He's on in LA now, but he let me in on some. He's a big fan of blending amps. He was in here once, and he said, "You do a lot of things with blending amps." I go, "Not really. I kind of record one amp at a time." He goes, "Dude, you got to." You know, and on Super Unknown, they used Marshall and a Mesa for a lot of stuff. I think a dual rectifier and a JMP Marshall was a big part of this. So that could have been that, you know, maybe a blend of those sounds with a jazz master, that kind of complex thing. 464 people online. I'm completely happy with that, even though folks are doing multiple live streams today. Thank you for being here, folks. Jay Jones says, thank you for doing what you do. Thanks, man, and being here. Have you tried a full contact bridge? I put it on my 80 Les Paul Custom and makes a noticeable difference. I haven't tried that. Is it something that just really connects with the bridge posts or something, or has some kind of, I haven't tried it. Can make a big difference. One thing I did get for one of my Les Pauls was the pigtail tailpiece. I think that fellow's passed away, maybe. That I hope I'm right about that. But I heard that he's not around anymore, the fellow that made the pigtail stuff. But this is 15 years ago. I bought a pigtail with the you know, the tailpiece, you know, aluminum tail, lightweight tailpiece with the studs that were case hardened steel, and they came with the inserts. And here's one thing I noticed with that, and it's probably Tone Pros and some other people do similar things now, I don't know, but I had my Les Paul. It was a gold top Les Paul that I sold many years ago, but the inserts that went into the body were brass, as well as the posts, I think, were brass, or maybe one was steel and one was brass. But anyway, there was a lot of play in the ones that Gibson used. So in other words, you take the bridge off, and then the screw, that, you know, the big screws that go in to hold the tailpiece, they would wiggle on my Les Paul. I had those pulled out and put in the pigtail ones into the body, direct replacements, basically. So they were drop in, and then you'd screw the screws in, and those pigtail screws were tight, as they felt like machined, like really tight tolerances where you'd screw them in and there was no play, a lot of metal on metal contact, and they were case hardened steel. And then that aluminum lightweight tailpiece, I put that on the guitar, and I was like, I'm positive I hear a difference in the resonance of this guitar. just replacing the tailpiece. It was really cool. So that was one that I tried. Yeah. Roscoe says 421 and a 57 is what I use. And other folks are saying, this is back to microphones, talking about mics on guitar amps. Yeah, that's the classic combo. I mean, from, classic rock and roll combo. And Dave Friedman was mentioning that's a Brendan O'Brien favorite as well. All the Rage at some point became a ribbon and a 57. I like 421. I haven't actually got around to doing that this week. Maybe what I'll do is I've got this robotic mic mount I mentioned. Maybe I'll experiment a little bit this week with putting that on and then moving a 421 around, listening, finding the sweet spot. I'd like to have the 57. 57s are so sensitive to placement. And so I'd like to maybe the 421 to me would be the secondary mic if I was going to use it. And I would like to move it around, find the ultimate place, mark it on a cabinet and put it there, and then put the 57 on the robotic mic mount and have that one be one that I could move around. Rich is up there in the top chat. He says, do you have a pet peeve about other people's cover tunes? Mine is when someone uses death metal levels of gain for AC/DC or Zeppelin. Yeah, that's a excellent. Yes, not cool. As well as drummers not playing them right. That's my number one AC/DC. If you're going to cover and try and do like a verbatim, you got to get the feel of there's so much feel in the drums. Well, Led Zeppelin too, right? Very few people. The Zeppelin's harder, so I kind of give it some leeway because I understand it's really hard to play like Bonham. I feel like the hard to play God, I'm forgetting AC/DC's drummer's name, which is total sacrilege. Oh God, my mind. Somebody help me out. Because I can't believe I'm forgetting his name right now. It's not that I don't know it. Don't hate me. It's like forgetting a major political leader's name or something. I'm just having a total brain fart. Help me out. Anyway, you know who I'm talking about. His feel, I feel like it's out of laziness that drummers don't learn his feel, because it's like he was such a big part of it, but he didn't play that much. It was more just his swing and groove. And where he hits the cymbals on beat 2, like Hell's Bells, right, where he's hitting the crash on 2 is such a huge part of that. And drummers often don't do that. They won't do that. It's like, didn't you notice he's hitting the crash on beat 2 with the snare, beat 2 and 4 sometimes, or his simple fills and the feel through the fills and stuff is just like, I don't know. And I feel like it's like just drummers. It's like guitar players that solo too much or something. So that's a pet peeve for me, is the drummers like, oh yeah, I know that song. I can play it. It's like, do you really know it? Like, it's like bass players that say they know AC/DC songs. Do you really know it? Do you really know that the bass stays on the root for like the whole first half of the tune, and then it finally goes to the third or whatever and then he makes the change in the chord, shit like that, Like, you don't make the changes with the guitar, and because it's such a huge part of the sound of AC/DC is those little things, those subtle things. So when people miss all that stuff and they don't, because I don't know, it's such a part of the power of the song. AC/DC is such a sum of the parts that when one of the parts goes off the rails, it sounds like crap to me. Some bands you can play around a bit more because they're a bit more jammy and busy. The power of simple with AC/DC was that was. And so when people just don't overall, I guess that's my, when they don't capture that, it's, yeah. Richard Nixon says Cyanide Junkie. That's right. Richard Nixon, his power on the drums was unparalleled. And it was, thank you. I like you so much right now. You've got my sense of humor. I do that all the time. You know that guy. And I'll be like, Gorbachev, if they're talking about a guitar player or something. Yeah. I like that joke. Phil Rudd. Thank you, Chef Jeff. And as you're saying it, I'm like, yeah, Phil Rudd was nowhere near the tip of my tongue. And I love Phil Rudd. And it's like, I've just started, maybe I need Prevagen. Can I get a Prevagen endorsement? I'm sold. I want it. I'll take it. Just anything that helps. Maybe it's Pete Best, says Mike. Was Phil the guy that got busted for trying to hire a hitman? Hey man, dirty deeds done dirt cheap. These guys live, they're not just talking it, they're living it. Honestly, that story was so messed up. But when I thought of dirty deeds done dirt cheap right away, and I was like, that's so AC/DC and so rock and roll. It's totally politically incorrect. You shouldn't be trying to hire a hitman. But by the same token, it was like, Of course he is. He's an AC/DC. Anyway, Richard Dixon. I love you guys. All right. My number one pet peeve is everyone plays Chuck Berry, Johnny Be Good way too fast. That's interesting. Yeah, people playing anything way too fast sucks. Err on the side of too slow and just play powerful. And then you've got sludgy, that's cool. Okay. What else we got here? The 57 is like the tube screamer of microphones. Really great for a particular sound, not right for other sounds, says Drew A. Here's the thing. Landau, Scott Henderson, great guitar players, right? They both only use a 57 to record. So they are like, the 57 gives you everything you need, everything we want to hear. And they both say that, so I find that really interesting, that they both veer that way. And I definitely lean on the 57 hard. I mean, most of my stuff, that's the main thing you hear. I've got a ST-170 ribbon mic out there too. But if you look right now at the levels, I'm looking at my BAE mic pre, and the levels of the I blend the ribbon in just so you start hearing it. And other than that, it's all 57. So the 57, and then it's like on a Marshall, where you've got the channels jumpered and you got the treble on 8, and then you blend in the bass channel on 2 or 3. That's how I use the 2 mics, just where I start to hear that low end come in. What can I say? I like cut and treble and stuff. I'm rock and roller. But I wanted to mention this thing while we're talking about mics. This is a mic I got. This is the Stephen Slate modeling mic. So this comes with a software plug-in that, if you've got the Stephen Slate virtual mix rack. The idea with this mic is it's a condenser. It's a very, very flat condenser. It does sound great on its own. Its sound is fantastic. So I used it this week to record the acoustic guitars on this track that I mentioned is going to be coming out in a couple of weeks and be part of that whole Lollapalooza thing. Only acoustic guitar, but anyways, I did guitars through this, and I was so knocked out with the guitar sound. What it is you use this, and then you add a plug-in to it, and you can using the plugin simulate the sound of various microphones. So it's modeling for microphones basically, and it comes with like U47, Telefunken 251, C12 AKG, like a whole Sony C800, and actually SM7. Sure, SM7 is the one large diaphragm dynamic that's in there. This thing sounds amazing, man. I mean, I put the C12 on the acoustic guitars with a nice bright, it's a mic with an extended, beautiful top end on it. AKG C12. It sounds amazing on it, and almost no EQ. I mean, I was able to not do a lot of the normal stuff I do, which is carve out low mids, like add some sparkle. I barely added anything to it, and it just sounded warm but clear, like without the mids and stuff. So anyway, these are $500. I bought it. Well, they're not actually. They're $700. I bought it on sale from Sweetwater for $500. This isn't an endorsement thing, right? I love Steven. I know him, and he's a great guy. He's hilarious, and he has parties that are, I mean, he has Christmas parties and have a real reindeer there and stuff like that. His parties are legendary. But anyway, really fun. But anyways, what was my point? Oh yeah, so I bought it. I don't expect to, even though I know the guy, I bought it from Sweetwater, and for $499, when it was on sale, it's just a great microphone. So it's I'll use it mainly in here for voice. I use it for voiceover and for acoustic, and if a singer, if I'm doing something with a singer. I've got my other mic over here is a Mojave MA200. That's a tube mic that, it's about a $1,200 tube condenser. Really nice on acoustic guitar and stuff, but a bit more of a one-trick pony. And I've had issues with it where there's something wrong with it. And I took it to Mojave and they tried to repair it. It was one of those things where you take it in, it doesn't do the thing. They're like, yeah, we've been listening to it on for 2 days it's been on and it's not doing what you're saying. And I'm like, okay, I'll plug it in and then it'll start 15 minutes later, which is just, I got to bang the body of the mic and then the signal comes back in. Otherwise it gets really thin sounding. It sounds like there's something wrong, like a connection that's messed up. And so can I say, I can't, it still works and it sounds great, but I hate that aspect where sometimes it'll screw up and I got to hit it and then it starts working. Drives me crazy. So anyways, I moved to using things that are just a little bit simpler. Anyways, why does your chair make those awful noises? Sorry. I hit that. Is that what you're talking about? Sorry. I'll get a new chair. It was $50. That's why. As with anything, you pay for what you get. I got to go to relax the back and get a better chair. And it'll be good for my lower back. And you're making me think. I'm going to take this as constructive criticism. Try and record acoustic guitar. It sucks. It's one of those things I just haven't gotten around to. Like a haircut. It's all about priorities, I guess. Chris says, what's your favorite Fender Blackface amp? Hard to pick a favorite. The most versatile and probably the most useful is a deluxe reverb because you can use them at little gigs. They're light to carry around. They sound great for a lot of things. I used to use one a lot on a lot of sessions, and it's like a great, if you want the Fender thing, you grab the deluxe reverb, and it's perfect for a lot of things. So hard to argue with that. A super reverb, like I did the Amps in the Zone video on that super. I mean, just listen to it in the video. It's a great thing, but they're backbreakers and heavier to carry around, a little less versatile in that sense. Get a good gaming chair, says L. Scott Music. That's interesting. Is that a thing? Like chairs for I don't know this. Chairs for gamers. I relax the back, honestly. If you've never been in one of those stores, they're fantastic. I mean, you can go in there and they got everything just, I mean, I'm sure they got an online thing. It's probably robust as well these days, but I should just check it out. Great place to get, a comfortable chair. My lower back suffers because of this chair. There's no doubt about it. So a good guitar chair is an interesting thing because you want something with no arms, right? This one had no arms. So it was like, I'll buy that for $50. I think I got it from Office Depot. Little trail mix. Yes, it's a thing, says Lauren. Gaming chairs are terrible for guitar, says someone else. Aeron chair, says somebody. This is a good discussion, actually. Especially as all of us are staying home and practicing more. Anybody got chair suggestions? Put it out there. Let's put links and stuff like that. I'll approve them. Or Ben, go ahead. If somebody's got a good link there. Ben, by the way, I haven't even said hi. I'm sorry. You're awesome. Thank you for being here. If if anybody's got a good link or for a chair they like or something, because we're all staying home and playing more, making these YouTube videos and doing things these days. What's a great chair for guitar that doesn't screw your back? I was really looking forward to your preset on the Helix Hour. Are you making any available? Yeah, I got to get on that. I will make one, Victor. I'm gonna make a cool preset for sure. Ted Green, just sit on the floor from Mark. God, that's great. You're right. Ted just used to sit cross-legged on the floor with no shoes or socks on, and that was how he rolled. I love Ted. He was great. Have I tried the Sir Ombre? Not yet. I don't know. They don't love me or something. I kept telling John, I'll make a video for you. I'll play ZZ Top style stuff. It's going to be great. What do? They send one to Peach and they make a video. Peach makes great videos, by the way. I'm just being sour grapes. I love John and those guys, but I've offered, and what can you do? You can lead the horse to water and you can't force it to drink. Tone Talk is live right now. I know they're on they're on the same time, but I got 492 people here, so we're 492 strong. I love the Tone Talk guys. I love that we can all do this. Drummer chair, says Dina. Yeah, a good drummer, like a drum throne. But the only thing is, it's got to have wheels so you can roll around. I was looking forward to your preset. Oh, I already read that one about the Helix Hour. Sound chairs are good, says BB Ninja. Is that a thing? Well, I should check that out. Yeah, Recaro makes excellent chairs, comfy and groovy. Good guitar chairs. Yeah. Too loud, says Gabriel Tone Guitars. Is that like my chair is too loud? The chair is fine. It's just your back squeaking. That could be. It's true. Pat says or asks, do you mic cabs as well as use direct line load box type recording at the same time? I'm confused about phase. Yeah, it's a great question, and you should be, because yeah, you will have a phase issue if you do both. I generally don't. I mean, sometimes I'll track both and pick one or the other, but I'm not into the whole like blending and phase locking them and move the track around and stuff. I just pick one or the other. Too much trouble for me. The direct signal is always going to be different than the mic signal for sure. So, and I hate, unless you're going for the effective out of phase, I hate the comb filtering thing and trying to line it and all that. I'm just like, I feel like the tone's suffering all the time. Have I ever tried the Tone Master Deluxe Reverb? I have not. I don't know that one. Adam Cave Project is up there in the top chat. He says, here's 10 for the chair comedy. Thanks, man. And $5 for some WD-40. That might just work. I've got deoxit around here. That might work too. Sucks. I should probably just like take the screws out and I don't know, tighten them or something on the bottom too. But it's so uncomfortable. Honestly, it screws my lower back. I've been thinking about that because I'm not getting any younger. So, yeah, let's see here. Just tried some Thornbuckers in my 77 Les Paul Custom going through my 71 JMP, and it sounds amazing, says Mikey. Awesome. That's great. They're great in a Les Paul, man. I mean, it'll give you a real vintagey, hopefully where you feel like the guitar is more, the tone of the guitar is more part of the equation and all that, and there's some clarity and some new tones in there, some Jimmy Page stuff, Big Telly stuff going on. Yeah. Chris from Ireland, best pedals for Vox AC30s, says Christopher. It really depends, because it depends on whether you're going in the normal channel or the top boost channel. So for the top boost channel, like dark fuzzes can work well, or pedals that allow you to tune the top end, something on the dark side, because the top boost just blows up the, on the normal channel, like a great rock tone, and I used this for quite a few things I did. It was a plexi tone into the normal channel. If I wanted a Marshall thing and I was renting an amp, I found I got a great, like really great Marshall kind of thing running a plexi tone into the normal channel of an AC30, because a plexi tone has a ton of presence. So, and a plexi tone does not want to be plugged into a bright amp. If you plug it into you can plug it into a Fender that's got the bright switch off or no bright cap, and it would sound really good. Or the AC30, just great, like really rich tone. Plug it into the top boost channel and you're asking for it. I remember doing it once and just trying it out at a sound check and stuff, trying to make it work. And there's this singer that was there, this background singer, and she was looking at me like, oh. Like she was looking at me like she was horrified at what I was doing. I was like, I guess this isn't a good sound. When somebody else gives you the feedback that maybe you're trying to make it work, and then you realize like this is a poor idea. Anyways, yeah. Okay, moving down to the bottom of the chat. I have a Plexitone, says Christopher. Great pedal into a dark amp, honestly. Dark sounding amp, really terrific. Any pickup recommendations for a baritone, not seeking super heavy sounds? Does it need anything particularly different than regular guitar levels? Baritones are such like when I think about the Jerry Jones or my Dan Electro or whatever, it's just like you kind of get like, I don't think about it. Honestly, I just take the guitar for what it is because it's kind of a unique thing. I've never replaced the pickup I've got lipstick tubes in my baritone, so it's like a completely weird, unique pickup, and I sort of just take the guitar for what it is. I guess it's got a coil tap where you can run them both in series in the bridge, and then it just, you know what I mean, it uses them as a humbucker basically. What are other baritone like? I know. You see, it might be a great question for someone like Mark Lettieri, because he's a big baritone user and has a bunch of different ones, and he's such a great guitar player. So I would probably ask him that question. But I only have one. So let's see here. What else we got here? What about Friedman amps? Could they steer you from Sir or no? Well, I mean, like Dave's a good friend of mine, right? Like I see him all the time, and I actually have had. I mean, I had a BE. I've had a few, and I had. I mean, he just modded that red amp back there for me, so that's basically a Friedman dealio. With his, I've always got something of his around, just not in particular. Like I don't have one of his, Dirty Shirley's or a small box or whatever. I don't have one in here, but I've got his mods many times. Of course, he builds all my pedal boards and stuff. So, it's all part of the same family to me. That amp sounds amazing. I mean, that which he did for me with the Jose stuff. We geeked out really hardcore like recently on the Jose thing, because I made the video of the Steve Vai amp, and that kind of blew up, and it actually a few other people like John Sykes and Metallica and stuff. Some folks saw that video, I think, and they were like, "Hey, we want to get ours worked on too." Like, And so a lot of the amps came into his shop and stuff, partially because of that video, I think, as well as a bunch of other, he a friend of his, Taka from Japan, and some other ones. So long story short, like 6 or 7 of them came through his place, and I would go in there and listen, and got to play a lot of them and stuff. And so, and that's this amp is the result of a lot of that kind of a little bit of research and stuff, and the variety. And so I've learned so much through the process, actually, of trying all those different ones and learning what I like and what kind of makes them work and what kind of makes them tick. And I feel like this, to be honest, is my favorite of all the ones that I've heard, because it's a great point-to-point, hand-wired with Marin transformers and all the stuff, and it's super tight. And then Dave had a couple things like, I think I can do this better, and I think I can do this better. The way that he did this, there's a way to do it that will take some of the, for instance, okay, I'll give you one example. If anybody does the Jose mod thing to their amp, the master volumes, Jose used to do a push pull, and it would put the master either pre EQ or post EQ. They both sound markedly different, and on that push pull, it would be a lot of noise when you bunk through the speakers when you push pull that thing. So Dave was like, you should probably put your amp on standby when you're, like save your speakers, because it was really aggressively loud. Not only that, when it's in the pre-EQ master, there was a lot of bleed. So you turn the master to 0 and all the sound was bleeding through and stuff. And he thought that was something to do with the, the master and stuff. So anyway, what he wanted to do in my amp, he said, let's just put 2 masters. And when you pull the switch, it'll switch from one to the other. The other one will still be in line, but he said, basically, if you turn that one up, which is the postmaster, all the way up, and you put the pre-master in line, the postmaster is going to be out of the circuit. It's not going to have any measurable or noticeable, maybe measurable, but not noticeable effect on the tone. I said, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, I'm sure. But I was like, all right, let's listen. And sure enough, he's right. It's fine. So anyways, that's what's going on with the push-pull. It's 2 master volumes, and doing it that way instead of having on 1 master volume with the push-pull, now it's 2 and 1 activates the other. And it's little perfections and things like that. There are things that Jose never did, that are ways to do things, The other thing is the internal jump ring of the 2 channels, the way Dave's doing it, so that I'm going to the treble channel and the normal channel all the time, but there's no loss that you would get from a jumper cable. None of that. Like, it drops in volume a bit, weakens the tone a little, but it's still cool. This is like, it sounds amazing like now, because I can blend in the normal channel a bit, and it's just like, I don't know, it's more like, it just sounds better. So anyway, pretty cool. Is there a way to play an AC30 in your bedroom? Says Jez Bass. Oh, so you started out by asking me, would I play Friedman's? I feel like that's one. So, and would it take me away from Sir? I mean, I've got great relationships with both those guys, and my signature, I mean, it's a different kind of relationship I have with John, I feel like. And bringing, I'm never, gonna, I mean, at least on the foreseeable future, I'm working on all kinds of things with Sir, and I love that relationship of bringing these kind of forward thinking products to, Dave's got his own, he doesn't need me for that stuff, so I've got my own relationship with Sir and doing my amps that are, my workhorses, my daily workhorses, and bringing those to market and stuff, and stuff that I feel like musicians can really use. And then with Dave, I have this more like tinkering around with old Marshalls. We're not doing any stuff with IRs or load boxes or any of that kind of. It's like we're like fine tuning the ultimate distorted Marshall sound, and that's kind of like with Dave. It's a different thing. Does that make sense? I hope so. And I love Dave's amps for what they are and stuff. He's great. They're both great. There's room for everybody in this world. Loot89 says, hey, Pete, the answer to the question lies here. Music tech interviews. Is this recording Soundgardens fell on black days? That's cool. So Loot89 put up a top chat with a link, and that's awesome with the how they blended amplifiers and stuff, right? It's probably with Michael. Yeah, I've talked to Michael. I mean, we had a pretty long discussion about it, about the blending the amps and stuff, as well as just kind of the creative process for that record. I know they butted heads a bit and stuff, the band and Michael, and it's kind of interesting to talk to him about it. But he's obviously a talented, Michael, obviously very talented producer and engineer with a lot. He had a lot to do with the sound. So it's interesting. Sometimes that chemistry and everything and the tension can create a great sound. And it sure did, Thanks for your commitment to live Sundays, says Mark. It really makes for an interesting afternoon. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Excuse me. Would Thornbuckers be an explorer? How would Thornbuckers be an explorer? Not a real fan of the 496R and the 500T. Well, I suspect if you wanted more of a vintage thing, more what originally came in a 58 Explorer. I mean, it's going to make it more Leonard Skinner and less Metallica. You know, I don't know how else to describe it, but you know, it's just a lower gain, clearer thing. If you're trying to, certainly if you're trying to clean up. The thing about an Explorer, maybe not the Carina one so much, but a lot of Explorers are mahogany, and there's this massive slab of mahogany. I know I have one, and it's dark, and I still have hot pickups in mine, and I don't play it because it's some dark mid-range bomb, that guitar. So it's a guitar that I've been meaning to get around to switching the pickups in, you know, and put something else in. Thornbuckers could be great if you want something a little more aggressive, because even in, I mean, they'd probably be great. I might even be tempted to put an SSV in the bridge of an Explorer because it's brighter and got a little bit more edge to it than the Thornbucker we designed to be like this nice, the bridge pickup, a nice, like slightly sweeter pickup. And in an Explorer, I might even want more of that cut than it, but it could be great. Just depends what you want, you know. Something like an SSV is going to have the Alnico 5 magnets, a little more treble, a little more. It's a little more edge, which in an all mahogany guitar, maybe the Alnico 5 in the neck though will give you that, you know, in a 7.3K, you know, it's with the offset wind and stuff like that. So what else we got here? Have I played the Friedman JJ Jr.? No, I haven't. That's Thomas. I have not. But ever use a rat pedal in front of your Marshall? I'm a big fan of the rat pedal. I've used a rat pedal on a bunch of stuff, actually, like occasionally. Not any recently, but many years ago. I had one, I mean, 25 years ago. I mean, I think they're underrated. I mean, it used to be Jeff Beck thing. It was like a great, I mean, to me, they were just they could obviously be ice picky depending on where you set the filter or whatever they called the tone. But I mean, to me, it was just a great kind of ampish distortion. I don't know how else to describe it, you know, really cool. Lude 89 says, love Soundgarden. Kim Thale is from my hometown, and his mom was my social studies teacher. That's amazing. He's a really nice guy. The couple times I met him, he struck me as very sweet. You know, I've only had a couple discussions with him, but he struck me as a nice person. Would you add an orange amp to your collection? Yeah, you know, because of Ty, I was actually fascinated about the new solid state one he plays. I would love to try that. Or a vintage, you know, obviously OD 120 or whatever they called them. That would be interesting too. Gary says, watched your interview with the captain at Anderton's. Really good hearing all your stories. Thanks. I really had a good time doing that. We had a nice vibe, I felt like, you know, and it was a comfortable interview and stuff. And I enjoyed that whole trip to the UK and then doing the rest of my European clinic tour immensely. Because I was in the midst of doing a whole run around the UK with my buddy Nigel from Sur, and we had a really nice time, you know, and it was a great trip. I mean, some of those places, and I think about it now, I appreciate it even more because, of course, whole lockdown, and it's like, God, that wasn't that long ago. I was over jaunting around Holland and, you know, going to France and going to, you know, Germany, and we had a great trip. So I look forward to getting back to doing more of that, you know, definitely. Yeah, these things we hopefully don't take for granted when they happen, you know. Have you played the 1-watt Marshall? Is it a bedroom amp? $300 is a lot for me to spend. Is that used? I mean, I have one. I have this little guy, which I paid double that for. So I think I paid $6 for this. It's obviously in great shape. Still got the sticker on it, but this was a 1-watt JT M1, and I think these sound awesome. This was my favorite one out of the 1-watt tube Marshalls. Just volume and was it loudness and tone. And it's got the little attenuator on the back, which is basically a built-in load resistor. And the funny thing, like my friend Soren Anderson, there's a trick with these. He used to use this with Glenn Hughes. I mean, he does all kinds of cool gigs, and he would put this in and then take the speaker out. Essentially, brings it down to about line level. It's kind of hot line level, but he bring it down to line level. And he'd take the speaker out and go right into a rack and run it through effects and stuff, and then out through a power amp and out to cabinets. And this was the tone generator, and he'd use pedals in front. Probably set it for crunch or whatever. Kind of a one. You know what I loved about that is that's one of those old school, like totally unique guitar rigs, like you would hear, people use, like Richie Blackmore or Brian May or whatever. It was a unique, using this thing in a way that it wasn't necessarily designed to be used as a preamp, but with the power amp, but like essentially as a loaded down amp, I guess. Yeah, it's not. I guess it's just slaved. Is all it is. Maybe it's not that unique, but the concept of using a 1 watt amp slaved, I thought that was kind of unique. Weird little 1 watt amp that sounds big. I mean, it's the tone of it is authentically kind of big and grindy. And I've got a little 110 cabinet. God, where the hell is that cabinet? I don't know where that thing is now. I think it might be in the other room. I got it somewhere, but it's got a because I had this amp home, and I know I don't have that at home. But anyways, I got to find my little 110 cab. But one of those Marshall 110s from the 80s, and the speaker it came with, because I bought it used, it sounded not very good. And then I pulled it out and put a current greenback 10-inch in, which if anybody wants, it's a great sounding speaker. I think they make little creamback 10s now too, as well as the gold, which is really terrific sounding as well. But anyways, the 10-inch greenback, great sounding speaker for 110. It transformed the sound of that cabin. With this, it just sounds awesome. For sitting there by the TV, you can put the attenuator on and play it like a quiet volume. It sounds great. Really cool. So I like it. It's not this one doesn't sound metal. It sounds bluesy, Zeppelin-y, JTM 45-ish. It's cool. Yeah. Okay, what else we got here? I put this Duncan Custom 59 hybrid in my SG, says Ethan Ricks. I think I know those pickups. Are you talking about a Duncan Custom and 59 hybrid? Is that like a pickup you modified or something? I wonder. Like one side of Custom and the other side of 59 or something, the coils or something? Anyways. Oh, yeah. Is the red amp you have in the back a Germino? Yes. Looks like one. Should do a comparison with that and the other Plexi style amps you have. Well, it's heavily modded now, so I've talked a little bit about it, but 2 weeks ago it wasn't, but now it's. I bought it as a donor to turn into the ultimate Jose mod, with the goal though of being able to keep the original tone, and I think that's been largely achieved. So I think it does sound. It's just that it wouldn't be technically. Like people might go, well, I wonder what the mods are doing to the sound. Technically, I think Dave really achieved it. Where I wanted to be able to, because the amp I plugged it in when I got it here through that 412, and I cranked the hell out of it, and it sounded amazing. Like, man, it's warm and clear compared to my SL68. The SL68 sounded a little gainier and it had a little bit more. It's lower filtering. So when the SL68 had a low filtering, this one we're wondering if somebody ordered it with stiffer filtering. Because when we opened it up, it's like, oh, it's got like pretty stiff, like fairly stiff filtering in it, actually, which normally I would be afraid of. But then I plugged it in and played it, and I was like, this amp sounds amazing. So don't mess with it, because we had talked when we were going to do the mods about it's got original Sozo caps in it, and Dave was kind of like, oh, I don't know about those. Like maybe we'd change them. Then he likes the new ones a lot more and stuff for certain things. But when you play something and it just sounds great, just don't. Take your mind. We can talk about tone all day and stuff, but the best thing to do is listen to it, right? And if it sounds good, just maybe don't screw with it, So the tubes that came in it were the EL34B, Chinese made EL34s. We just left those. It had Mullard long plate 12AX7s in it, and kind of cool, like sounded pretty cool. But pulled those and once we did the mod, put the old Chinese 12AX7s in. It was like, that sounds more like that thing. Like it's that slightly more vicious, smooth distortion. I don't know, the Mullards, they look like the long plate LP style. I think I put them in a box. I don't have them sitting here anymore. But anyways, you know what I'm talking about. If it sounds good, it is good. Don't think too much about it. Yeah. What else we got here? Oh yeah, okay. Jones, Ethan Ricks says that one side's a 59 and one side's a custom. That's interesting. Cuts without being harsh. Interesting. One side of a 59, one side of a custom. I wonder what about the really mismatched coils and stuff? I mean, it's interesting. Whatever works. If it sounds good, but once again, we're talking about tone and not listening. I'd like to hear it. Be curious because I would think that, you'd have one side quite a bit hotter than the other side then. So it probably definitely cuts, but that's interesting. I'd like to hear it. Could recalibrate our thoughts on pickups. Hi, Pete. Just bought the Sur IR with a Sur Modern and was wondering for recording, do I still need an audio interface? Yeah, you'll need some kind of audio interface to get the signal into your computer. All kinds of them out there. I'm a UA user. I recommend Apogee as well. Fantastic. Some other good ones are PreSonus. I like quite a bit. The Focusrite stuff seems okay as well. But yeah, you'll need an interface of some sort. That gets the sound converted into digital and sends it into your computer and allows you to monitor and all that stuff. And, good recording interface. What time is it? It's 1:22. I'm going to go till about, I'll go about another 10 minutes or something, 10, 15. And then I'm going to split and keep working on this number 5 Synvertech distortion demo and some other things. Have to get going, says Harley. Great to have you here as always. See you. We'll see you next week, I hope. I use a Focusrite, says Loot89. Yeah, they're pretty good. Britt uses one for recording drums and not too bad. Yeah. Quentin says that he sold his Helix rack. Adulting sucks. I need a hug. Sorry, man. Get something else. You can always get another one. The good thing is you can store all your presets, and then you can buy another one down the road and load it back in. You've got your gear back again. Right? Easy. Do you work on your own guitars or have a tech? I mean, I do all the basic stuff. Intonation, truss rod. I don't do fret dress. I draw the line there. I tried it. Hated it. I hated doing it, and I don't think it turned out quite right. So I realized I bought all the stuff. I had files and all the right stuff, and I was like, I don't enjoy this work. I don't think I'm that good at it, and I should leave it up to people that know what they're doing. Because some people really enjoy this stuff. I mean, Sir, I think he still enjoys it. Doing a great job on frets and making them perfect. Beautiful and consistent and shiny and feel great. I don't. It's just not where my heart lies. So I love more like audio engineering and like if it's something related to guitar but other than guitar, for me it's recording and engineering and all this other stuff that we talk about. That's my hobby. Whereas I think he enjoys building and making things perfect, and that's right. He really loves that stuff. So Arthur Gonzalez is up in the top chat. He says, I hate that I missed most of the stream, but still sending you lots of good vibes. Thanks, man. Thanks for being here. You can always rewatch it. This one was really fun today, I think. So they're always fun, but I appreciate you guys being here, and I felt like it had a nice flow. Yeah. So yeah, long story short, I'll do string changes, cleaning, intonation, truss rod adjustments, all that kind of stuff. Basic setup stuff. I can do all that. And I know it probably just as well as anybody, like what I like. So I'm not afraid of all that stuff. What are my favorite Telly pickups? Ron Ellis made a set for my 66 Telly that is exceptional. So they're the 50-60 set with the medium tall neck. I highly recommend them. When people talk about the guitar a lot, like when I play it in videos, it's one of the other ones besides my 335 that people are always like, man, the tone of that guitar is, and I gotta hand it to him because you get a vintage guitar, you hope the original pickups are all that. Well, like on a lot of Tellys, the base of the base plate on the pickup can warp, and then you get all this feedback, makes it unusable with gain. And this happens on a ton of the old Tellys. And so that was going on with mine. And also the neck pickup had a short or something, was intermittent. Sometimes it work and sometimes it cut out like really bad, like still work, but And so I may look at getting it fixed sometime. I've got the original pickups for the guitar, but I pulled them out, and Ron made me these pickups. And I was just looking at a pickup shootout in Guitar Player magazine, as well as talking to some people and stuff. And his pickups, like they did some shootout where it was like, it wasn't on the gear page. I thought it was in Guitar Player. It might have been on the gear page. I don't remember. Anyways, a number of years ago, and I remember reading the shootout of like 30 or 40 different Tele pickups, and Ron was like, better than vintage. Everybody was like, his pickups are like otherworldly good. And so I was like, all right. And he made me this set of pickups, and they're fantastic. I know he's got a long wait, but I'm in California. He's in California. He let me drive over to his place, and we sat there in the garage, and he'd made me this set of pickups, and he put them in my guitar, and it was a really great experience. He's a terrific guy, and he's just really, felt like he really cared about his craft. And so I don't know, really like him. Great pickups. Mike C. The Sir pickup that's in the bridge on my 52 style Tele, by the way, is fantastic too. The neck sounds kind of dark, but I know they've got other ones now than when I got the guitar. I haven't tried a Sir neck pickup in many, many, many years. So I know they've got different models, and I should probably check those out at some point too and see what he's doing. Mike C says, "Love your playing, man. Look forward to the N5 demo." Yeah, soon. I did doing this total prog. I don't know. Somebody said it sounded like Tool. It's like 7/8 to 4/4 kind of progressive metal sounding thing. Specifically, I was watching a video with Ola, and he was talking about how he admires when people can play an E or E flat without the super drop tuning and still sound heavy. So I thought, I got to try that. And that's what I plugged in this pedal, and I thought, maybe I'm going to try and write a cool heavy riff and not tune down, not go instantly to drop D or drop C sharp or something. Try and do it in standard tuning, see what I can come up with. So that was what it was. Also a song, as with a lot of my videos, they're like, I feel like I'm tricking people because I'm just having fun writing songs. So it was like a songwriting experiment. Let's make a heavy track in 7 and try and make something that sounds badass and heavy without, not sound trite or whatever. And but I'm not going to tune down. So Rich Monks is up there in the top chat, and he says, if it sounds good, it is good. I believe came from a music teacher at EVH and Frank Zappa both had in high school. I could be wrong with the origin, but my favorite musical quote. Yeah, thanks, man, and thanks for doing the top chat, as well as to Arthur. Thank you guys for being up there and helping. Every little bit helps keep the channel going, and in these tough times where we're not touring and all that. But so I appreciate you all so much. Thank you. Yeah, that quote is the truth. I mean, you shouldn't have to look any further than that. Whatever sounds good is good. We didn't used to think about these things and talk about music so much. Nothing wrong with talking. It's fun. But, like Jimmy said once, doesn't require talking, does it? Just playing whatever sounds good is good. I think about the great guitar tones that were cut direct, or different things that we all obsess over minutia and stuff. But at the core, if you did it with a crate amp and a tube screamer and a Hondo guitar, if it's an emotive part and people like it, that's all that really matters. If it resonates on a soul level. Great stream as always, says bro. Thank you, or brog. Sorry. Thanks, man. Thanks for being here. You have a lot of guitars. Can you always remember what sounds like what? That's Sean. Yeah, sure. They're like, I don't know. Yeah, totally. Like, oh, I should use this for this. Yeah, that becomes a thing. So, I'm guilty. Like some of them that stick around that I don't use, I should probably sell and things if they're just not for me or whatever. But I come back to the same ones a lot. Occasionally, you forget. Sometimes you go. Like if you haven't played a guitar for a little while and you pick it up and go, oh yeah, like that actually happened with the Nags. I haven't actually used it on things for a little while, but I used the Nags on the N5 demo, the Sinvertech, and I'm like, I was playing a guitar with my lower output pickups, and I thought maybe this is one of those things where I need a loud pickup. Like I've been thinking about getting EMGs for my Explorer, actually, a loud ceramic pickup, maybe the James Hetfield set, and putting them in just to have something completely opposite of what I normally do. It's good to have sometimes. And so I picked up the Nags because it's got the hot Rebel yells in it. And it was great. It's just big and loud and grindy and going into the pedal. It's like, yeah, great. Perfect for what I'm doing right now, for this demo. So, it's good to have it's good to have a variety of stuff around. So yeah, I had the EVH striped Hondo, says Jay Jones. That's cool. I'm sure these are the guitars that pissed Eddie off back in the day, and rightfully so, because he does something and everybody copies it, right? I remember the EVA stripe. Wasn't it just red and white stripes, right? And red. I remember those in the catalogs. It's funny. Have you played any mayonnaise guitars? I have not that particular one. Yeah, my first guitar was a Hondo, says MP Goff. Me too. That's the blue one on the cover of Guitar Nerd. Yeah. KT Turnstall is an amazing looper. Watch the rig rundown on her. I've met her. She's friends with my friend Rifa from Japan, and I went over to the studio once when she was recording, and she was very nice. She was in there working with her whole team and stuff. Yeah. Okay, what else we got here? With all your pedal reviews, have you ever considered working with Sir to design your own pedals? Of course. Maybe we're doing that. We work on stuff all the time, but there's new things in the works all the time, and there's some interesting things coming that we're excited about for sure. If I put out a pedal, the only thing is I want it to be really unique and that's my main thing. It's like I was saying with Sir, like you were like, well, Friedman, Sir. Like, so with Dave, I love tinkering with the Marshall thing and amps and things and mods and all those things he does. And I love doing that with John too. But with John and the products that we've, come up with, like the PT15IR, it's this overall, like, how can we bring out something that's really useful? Like, that's not, just a variation on a distortion pedal or something. It's got to be like, this forward thing. Cause I love that. I feel like Sir does that really well with things like the, putting the IR board in the amp and all that, and the reactive load in the amp, miniaturizing it. Like, let's push forward and come up with new tools that are things that people will actually want and use. And that are, require some mountain climbing, that how do we get over hurdles and stuff and do it all? That's the things that just naturally, organically, that we've sort of veered towards. I mean, the SL68 was a subtle, like, let's make a better 68 that has a great post-phase inverter master, which isn't like revolutionary. Other people were doing it, but also he's like, I think I can do it with a power transformer that switches down to 90 volts and all that. If I spec out the right transformer, then we could make it work at the optimum bias for both settings. These little things, it's like, that sounds great, and yeah. So those are the kinds of things that I love working on with them. And so anything pedal oriented will be that. It won't be a Pete Thorn signature overdrive. It's going to be more of a, hey, we've solved this problem and this is a thing. Why do you need it? You need it. Anyways, pedal with built-in PlayStation. That's not for me. I'm not a gamer. But I'm not criticizing those that are. Alex says, hey, Pete, your thoughts on Tuno's Torpedo Captor X, worth buying to save money and have great sound? The torpedoes are good, solid load boxes. I would be, I think with the X, not starting anything, but just be careful about the wattage on that particular one. Like, I know a Torpedo Live is plenty capable of 100 watts, and they say that about the X, but just with load box recommendations, do your homework and make sure. This is all I'll say as a blanket statement. Do your homework and make sure there's no stories out there of problems. I'm not saying there is with any particular one or other. This is just a general blanket rule. And when you're plugging your vintage Marshall into something and turning it on 10, you can't get those transformers again. You're going to get a new one that maybe sounds as good, but you're not going to get the one that was in it. So if you blow up something or fry an amp, you're devaluing the amp, right, on something that's worth a fair amount of money. And you're potentially, and none of that needs to happen. So you want to be very careful that there's not those situations. That's all I'll say as a blanket statement. Just as a recommendation, I worry about the health of you're running a race car on a dyno essentially, and you're you know what I mean? You're cranking it up to 7,000 RPM and just letting it run there. And you want to make sure that the thing can handle what you're doing. So those are there's more to it than price and tone. It's there's the and in my mind, I really like the way that Sir thinks about it, which is that I want to make something that makes the amp think it's plugged into a speaker, and that's it. Like, I don't need to offer a thing with a million different settings or whatever. He's just like, you want the amp to think that it's plugged into the speaker and respond as such. Beyond that, you can add your speaker simulation and do, but the amp, there's the safety of the amplifier and the response, so when it comes to things like impedance curves and reactive loads, fixed load on an amp changes the way that, but it's technically should be pretty safe in theory. When you start adding a reactive component, it better be reactive in the way that the speaker's reactive, because we know that amps often don't blow up if they're operating into a proper speaker cabinet and stuff, and you don't end up with problems. So that's the only thing, no. So what I talked about earlier, like, be sure about the rating of it'd be like plugging your amp into a 212 with greenbacks if it's a 100-watt Marshall, and you can potentially blow one of those speakers, and now you've got your amp, or maybe both of them, and now you've got your amp operating into no load or not a sufficient load, right? So you want to be careful about that. So just make sure the thing is overrated. As they say for a cabinet, like 50-watt Marshalls used to go with a 412 greenback cabinet, right? So for a 50-watt Marshall, you're supposed to plug it into one cabinet. For a 100-watt Marshall, two cabinets. That was the thing back in the day. Like, overrate by, right? Because, a 100-watt Marshall can make like 140 watts peak, no problem. A 50-watt Marshall can make like 80 watts, probably, right? No problem, peak. So you're running into a cabinet that can only handle, right? I hope that all makes sense. So just be careful about all that stuff and do your research. Look for stories. There's these resources now, like the Gear Page and stuff like that, where you can look if there's any stories of anybody with issues and stuff, and just do your research and buy something that works like the cabinet does and that's overrated for your amplifier so that it's safe. Just as important, if not, what good is your amplifier with great tone into a cheap attenuated? Oh, I just missed a super chat, I think. If I did, I'm sorry. But Noah, I think it was Noah. Funny you mentioned fret dressing. Doing a job right now, but would rather be tinkering with pedals and amps. You and That Pedal Show got me back into gear a couple of years ago. Thanks for all the great shows. Thanks, Noah. Thanks, and good luck with the dress there, my friend. Enjoy. Even though you'd rather be tinkering with. Some people love that work. I mean, there's a meticulous, it's like working on a car or something, I guess. I don't mind working on guitars. I kind of hate changing strings and stuff, but then I get into it and kind of enjoy the 15 minutes of making it sound good again and all that. I dread it, and then I do it, and I don't hate it. Vincent Moretti is in the top chat there, my friend that's also a coffee aficionado, and he says, can you recommend amp settings for MacMull Heartbreaker? Is it a T? And advice for a vintage style telly. I found a clean 1976, but also dig Danicaster and Anderson T. Thanks, and vote for Pedro. Vote for Pedro. Little Napoleon Dynamite. What a great movie. One of my favorites. Tina. The dance scene at the end of Napoleon Dynamite is one of my favorite things that's ever been put on film. Absolutely epic. Okay, so what was the question? Vintage telly advice. The thing about the 70s Fenders is if you can't play it in advance, they're so all over the map. So I'd be scared, any vintage guitar, really. It frightens me a little bit, because you don't want to get something that has a big gap in the neck pocket or something, or maybe weighs like a boat anchor. So I'd ask the weight and for a lot of photographs, and maybe they got a return policy. A lot of stores, if you're buying it, and will have a return policy. Vintage style T. Otherwise, the MacMull you mentioned. I have one, and mine. I gotta take it out. It's been in the case in the other room, and it's not out of any kind of like. I love that guitar, and you can see me playing that guitar and the tone of it on the Who songs that I did from Classic Rock Show in the tour that I did January. I used it on Who Are You and stuff. It's such a great sounding guitar, and it feels right too. The neck is awesome for a comfortable vintage style thing. So there's that option, or like you said, Anderson, of course, Sir. There's different options. He showed me a beautiful one they did the other day with really gorgeous aged finish. They've been experimenting a lot with the aging and stuff out there and trying different things and more subtle like kind of stuff. And it looked just gorgeous. It was a white one, kind of an antique white. And it's like, wow, this guitar is very nice. He's always trying to push ahead, that guy. It's great. Anyway, I don't know if that's much help, but my main thing with the vintage one, I would say, Vincent, is to try and get a lot of photos. Look for things like the neck pocket gap. I hate those ones that have like a big old, like you put 2 business cards in there, and and just any damage or any changes. Weight. Ask him the weight. Ask him to weigh it. If it's much more than, say, 8.5 pounds or something, I'd be scared. It depends on what some of them. Excuse me. God, I burped really loud. Some of them in the 70s were were ash, and they can be heavy. That can be great. I mean, it can be a cool sound. It's just going to be brighter and harder sounding. I don't know how else to describe it. If you want a little warmer and stuff, maybe the alder body. So it depends on the body wood and stuff, because they were using ash. Ask them if the pickups are microphonic. Play it through some gain, turn it up a bit, things like that. Alex says, "Hey Pete, you're an inspiration to me. You've inspired me to get better guitar." Thanks, man. Sending love from Birmingham. Spent lots of time in Birmingham this year, so thank you very much, man. I was there twice playing 2 gigs. I walked around that city a lot, and I had a lot of fun there. What was the coffee place? God, there's that coffee place in downtown that's so good. It's kind of like a breakfast joint too. Maybe you know what I'm talking about. It's not far from the theater I played there with Classic Rock Show, from the Birmingham Town Hall or whatever. It's literally like right there. If you were to Google or Yelp, coffee, you would find the one with 5 stars that's like literally just a little bit east of the Birmingham town thingamajig. Anyways. Well, guys, I should probably split. It's 1:43. Get some work done and stuff. So this has been awesome. I really appreciate you guys and being here. And I'll be back next week. And you reminded me I need to make that Helix patch that I said I would give to my nice friend from, of course, the Helix Hour, and to give to people. And other things I need to get done this week, like a drum. I should work on a drum software recording video and stuff like that, and how I program drums. But anyways, have I ever tried a PR Systems Power Tool Reactive Load Box? Button 50 watt solid state power. Oh, built-in 50 watt solid state power amp, multiple ins and outs from the 80s, late 80s. I haven't. PR Systems Power Tool Reactive Load Box. I'd like to see the design. I mean, I feel like I've never tried one until the Sur that actually really nailed the impedance curve properly. People said that they had reactive ones, reactive loads, and I don't know if they were ever right, or implemented really great. 50 watt solid state power amp, solid state's interesting. I mean, this is more on that down the road, but trying to figure out still why solid state sounds like solid state and why tubes sound like tubes, and trying to incorporate that, because of course solid state is easier. And when it comes to reamping, I would prefer less tubes. Is not a bad thing if you can make it feel great and sound great, and you don't have tubes. That's not a bad thing at all, because I love tubes, but of course every single tube becomes another place for fail. So not that solid state can't fail, it can, but generally speaking, you guys know what I'm talking about. Tubes are, it's a crapshoot these days a little bit. So, okay. Sorry if I missed your answer. The last thing in the chat here. Any thoughts on the Marshall 1965 410 cabs that are like mini 1960s from the 80s? So I had one. That was my my cab that I had with my MOSFET amp. It was cool. I mean, it was like a little 410. Somebody found mine recently on Craigslist or something in Edmonton, and they said the seller selling this thing, they say it was yours. And I'm like, well, I had one, so it probably was. I mean, maybe they bought it from me all that time ago and kept it until. But running a Marshall 18 watt into a full 65A and B stack. Wow, cool. What speakers you got in there? The originals? I wonder, because I wonder if there's those 35s, those ones with the kind of tiny magnets and stuff. And that's the only thing I wasn't sure about that, but the little Marshall 110 cab from the same era, I bought one of those, and it had that 35 watt Celestion 10 from the 80s, and it sounded not very good to me when I bought it. And then I replaced it with a new Greenback 10, and it transformed the sound. So I'm not trying to get you to go out and buy 4 speakers, or 8 speakers. but it might be something to investigate. Pop the back and see what they are. And I swear to God, if they're those ones, they're Celestion G whatever 35, maybe on one cabinet, I would say I don't think this is going to be a bad thing. Put in the dough and change the 4 out to 4 mono. If you want more greenback, or if you want more Alnico, there's the Alnicos. That's cool. But an 18 watt with the greens, I think would be ripping. Like the modern 10-inch greenback sounds great, and it sounded so much better when I put that speaker in. It sounded not good before, like I was like, oh, I don't like the sound of my Marshall 1 watt through this, and I would play it through a 212. It would sound great. And I don't know about this little cabinet. Let's try to get a new speaker. So I got one of the 10s, put it in the greenback, and it was like, there it is. Sounds like Led Zeppelin. Amazing. Sounds awesome. I don't know if it sounded like Led Zeppelin, but I think I played Led Zeppelin was the first thing I did. So, oh God, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to go, you guys. Yeah, the G10 35Ls. Some people seem to love them. Yeah, it sounded just, I don't know I don't remember how, other than to say I didn't like it, But anyways, guys, I'm going to split. I'm going to go do some work. But thanks, Ben Coombs, for being here. And to all of you folks, have a great week. And stay safe out there. And I'll see you. Somebody's asking, Braxall was asking if I trust my vintage Marshall into the aux. Generally speaking, the aux is pretty darn good. And the 2 notes are pretty darn good. The curves aren't exactly what a speaker makes, but they're pretty darn good. And their products have, a 2 Notes Torpedo Live has been a product's been out for 10 years at least, I think. And I've never heard of anybody having an amp fail into one. Maybe they're out there, but it's a good solid attenuator that's overbuilt for the, for the purpose. And as far as I know, from my calculations, the load in the aux is basically identical. So it's very, very, very similar. Like many of them out there are similar, So yeah, I trust basically my amps into the aux. Aux is definitely no problem as far as running a 100-watt amp. It's overbuilt and stuff like that. There's different things that come into play here, and I could talk about it for hours. So I'm going to go, but have a great week. You guys rock on. Stay safe. See ya.